Check the mic and make sure it sound right, boys.
Hey, I'm Aaron.
Hey, I'm John, and this is Pastors and Pizza.
I'm Josh, and this is Pastors and Pizza.
A podcast where three very unqualified
pastors consume some of the best
and
worst pizzas
Western Washington has to
offer,
while trying to make sense of our faith.
Figure out how it
connects to the world around us.
We believe the best conversations happen over food.
So pull up a chair, grab a slice,
pour a cold one,
and come along with us
wherever it is we are going.
Wherever it is we're going.
All right, you guys, welcome back to another episode of Pastors and Pizza. I'm John.
My mouth's full, and I'm Aaron. How you doing?
Nice to see you, Aaron.
Nice, buddy. Nice to see you.
Hey, so where do we find ourselves today?
In the beautiful town of Snohomish, Washington.
Nice.
At a place called Cathouse Pizza. First time here.
Yeah, so Snohomish, if you're not familiar, is a couple of towns over from our home base of Sultan, Washington, a little bit to the west of Sultan, and our first pizza place in Snohomish. And I'm not going to lie, I'm a little bit sad that we ended up here because we thought we were going to be going to North Lake Tavern in the U District before it closed.
True.
And we got some word yesterday from our advanced scouts that it was about 2 hours just to get in and order.
Gosh.
And so we decided,
2 hours.
Yeah, that was a little much for what we had time for.
Never mind that it would take us almost an hour to get there.
Right. So yeah, it's good 45 minutes to an hour just to get there. 2 hours in line, you order, you wait, you eat, another hour back. So yeah, we decided against that. And honestly, I was actually thinking about it. And I was like, it's kind of mean almost to go to a pizza place that people can't actually then go to themselves. And so it's probably better.
You did it.
Probably better that we didn't end up there, although it's literally been on my pizza list for multiple decades.
Well, maybe we should try and go on a personal trip.
So yeah, we'll see. We may try and get there before it closes, and maybe we'll be able to record something. But we ended up at Cathouse, Snohomish, Washington. What are your thoughts so far?
Gosh, I mean, it's cool, kind of almost got a dive kind of a feel to it in here. There's a lot of memorabilia, sports memorabilia. So I'm not going to lie, there's a lot of Coug memorabilia, but there's some Snohomish stuff. And that whole kind of atmosphere and all that. It's a bar, and they got a ton of different beers on tap. And the lady's fun and nice and pretty much what do you want kind of a thing, and she's been cool, but checked on us. All that so far, great. What about you? What do you think about it?
Yeah, so it's a pretty cool spot. I mean, I think they pride themselves, or they try to be kind of that neighborhood, small town kind of hangout type place. I mean, you definitely get that vibe. You got a lot of, like Aaron said, a lot of the local kind of sports memorabilia. Snohomish High School here in town. You got some stuff there. You got some Seahawk stuff, some Coug stuff. Tiny bit of Husky stuff. We were told that the original name, the Cathouse name, came because the original owners were Coug fans.
Boo.
So we almost got up and left.
Super close, actually.
We didn't. So anyway, cool little spot in Snohomish. I will say it was a little surprising how hard it was to find parking on a Wednesday in the middle of the day.
Yeah, absolutely.
But I've been here on weekends and found parking easier at night on a Friday or Saturday.
Gosh, that's crazy.
So
maybe there's some kind of, I don't know. Any of our antiquers out there, is Wednesday a special antique day?
Ooh, special like red tag antique
maybe
sales or something?
Maybe.
I don't know.
All right.
Well, so tell me about the pizza. Where did we go with on the pizza?
Well, so we went with the Cathouse Steak, which has 3 cheese blend, olive oil, fire roasted red peppers, which were outstanding, by the way, red onion, sirloin steak, roasted garlic cloves, sorry, Kathy, cooked Roma tomatoes, fresh basil, and drizzled with balsamic glaze, which definitely gave it a tart. It's thin crusted. I really, really love the crust. That's probably my favorite thing about it. The pizza itself was pretty good. It was okay. More steak would have been great. it's got the olive oil, so it's kind of a light thing. But the tomatoes, which I love tomatoes, something about it, too mushy. Didn't really love that about it.
Yeah, so we decided to branch out a little bit. At least for me, I don't know what your go-to pizza order is. I've been to Cathouse several times, and I almost always get their meat lovers pizza, pepperoni, sausage, Canadian bacon, that kind of thing. 'Cause that's my thing. Mm-hmm. And we decided to branch out. We got the steak pizza. Like you said, it is a little bit lighter. It's not a traditional sauce on it. It's olive oil.
Right.
And then the toppings on top of it. So it is a lighter pizza, which is nice, but especially at lunch, you don't have kind of that heavy feeling maybe after eating a big old meat pizza. It is the thinner crust, which I like kind of that wood-fired thin crust flavor. We did also get some cheesy bread.
Oh, my goodness.
It's called Crazy Cat cheese bread, which essentially it was a pizza without sauce, a cheese pizza without sauce is essentially what it is.
That's true, and it's really good.
And it was really good. But yeah, as far as the steak pizza, it was good. I've definitely liked the other pizzas I've had here better in the past. But it's a good pizza. It's not amazing. I could have used a little more kick, a little more oomph maybe, but it's a good pizza.
I did put some red pepper flecks on it. That was helpful. I will
Did you
say,
put flecks or flakes?
you do what you do, I'll do what I do.
Yeah,
they were flakes.
They're flakes?
They had a hard time coming out, so I called them flecks because it was getting me flustered.
Interesting. All right. Do you guys call them pepper flakes or pepper flecks? Let us know. We'd love to hear your feedback. But any kind of last any thoughts on the pizza, the environment, any of that kind of stuff?
I again, for it being steak, and I know that steak's kind of expensive, would have liked some more steak.
Yeah.
But I think this could be a pretty fun place for a date. Maybe even bring your kids. I'm not going to lie, looking at this pile-high pepperoni, that looks pretty amazing. So
Yeah, the venue itself is pretty limited on seating. There's one other person here eating right now as we're recording this, but I know on the weekends at nighttime it definitely gets very crowded. There's usually a wait because there's not a lot of seating in here. It's probably these days it's probably kind of average cost wise. Unfortunately, it's a little bit high, which is kind of the average now.
Yeah, no kidding.
So we got the medium, which is a 12-inch pizza, and it says it feeds 1 to 3. Because it's the thinner crust, I definitely tend to polish it off by myself a lot of times if I get this size.
And I'm saving a piece for little Pastor Zach.
Yeah, so we're trying to behave ourselves here, but you can definitely chow through this because it is a thinner style pizza.
We could have killed that, no problem.
Yeah, and so the medium was $18.25.
Yeah.
Which not cheap, but at this day and age, it's
not
kind of
shocking,
about normal,
right?
Yeah.
It's not shocking.
And then the cheese bread was $9.95, which feels maybe a little high. Honestly.
That felt a little high, but now having had multiple pieces of that,
it was good.
Maybe worth it.
Yeah, it was good. So, so that's kind of our thoughts on the Cathouse Pizza, the Cathouse Steak Pizza. Pretty good. Probably, I would say for me, is kind of middle of the road from the ones that we've had on the show.
I would say the crust for me, actually. Hey, for anybody who's aware of this, there's Zeke, the famous Zeke who runs around Monroe, just walked by outside.
Famous Zeke. All right.
But no uniform, no football, no nothing. He's just wearing like a vest where he looked like a biker. So maybe he's kind of
transitioning.
Changing some of his interest or transitioning.
Yeah. Nice. All right. Cool. So, we'll be back here in a minute with some more discussion, but check out Cathouse Pizza if you're in the Snohomish area. It's pretty good little vibe and pretty good pizza.
Gee.
We're back.
We are back. Thanks for that, Aaron. We're back from our break. A little beatbox by Aaron Day right there.
Free.
Free beatbox. So one of the things, Aaron, that we have not introduced our listeners to yet is some of the fancy accoutrements of our little recording box that we use here.
I just gave him a beatbox.
Well, that's not part of our recording box. That's just Aaron Day.
Yeah.
So we have a couple of bells and whistles that we have yet to use. So here's one. Here you go.
Oh yeah.
All right, so we might start using that as a little interlude, segue from segment to segment. I don't know. Probably easier than trying to find some random royalty-free music that I can put in there.
Which we've already paid for this anyway. So
yeah, so that's one thing. Here's another one. Yeah,
that totally is like, and we're back.
And if we get some good discussion and we need a little emphasis. I can hold that too. Watch.
I can hold this all day.
I can hold it all day long.
Thank you. No, seriously.
Thank you.
No, we're here for you. Thank you.
It's about the people.
The little people.
All right, and then Aaron gets a little dad joke happy, and he needs some love. There you go.
Yes, please. Can we get that on Sunday mornings?
I'll see what I can do.
All right.
I'll see what I can do.
All right.
All right. So thanks for joining us here, Pastors and Pizza. Aaron, what's been happening?
Gosh, I mean, we did just a few weeks ago, right? A couple of weeks ago.
Yeah, it's been a couple of weeks.
Yeah, quite a bit, and then also a lot slowed down. There's been some deaths in our community, so that's hard and painful, and just walking alongside some people through that. Grateful to be involved in people's lives. But like as far as traveling and doing a bunch of extra things, that's really slowed down pretty significantly. So been reading quite a bit more, a few devotionals, and a little bit behind on the reading for the church. But started reading a new book with my kids. My friend Michael Miyoshi wrote an autobiographical, what'd you say, Mike? Maybe even a little bit of fiction, little embellishments.
Based on a true story.
There it is, bro.
His own story.
Nice. His own true story.
Yeah.
It's called Show and Tell and the Great Ice Cream Caper, and my kids and I are loving it, and Kathy is too.
I mean, who doesn't love a great ice cream caper?
You know what I'm saying? So just some fun stuff.
We might have to do an ice cream caper, just see what happens.
Mike, thank you for that. And then watched a show that I'm not proud of called Kaleidoscope on Netflix. And it was, we were kind of vested in it. Kathy and I watched it over a couple of weeks. It was okay. It's kind of gross, broken. They don't glorify the thug life or criminal life, that's for sure. And then we watched a movie called Worth last night. Talk to you a little bit more about that maybe later. So what about you? What have you been doing? What have you been watching? What have you been reading?
Yeah, not a lot going on. I mean, that's one of the things we're trying to do here at Pastors and Pizza is be somewhat consistent with our frequency. We've been a little sporadic since the inception, trying to get schedules aligned and all that. And so we're trying to get a little more consistent. But with that becomes less time between episodes, which
Sure.
means not as much has really happened.
Right.
I don't live a super exciting, adventurous life.
Says you.
I mean, that said, I did recently go on a hike. I mean, that's not all that adventurous. We went to Rattlesnake Ledge out in the...
There was a rattlesnake?
Well, we were actually talking about that on the hike. It's like, why is it called Rattlesnake Lake and Rattlesnake Ledge in Western Washington where there are no rattlesnakes?
But then again, have you ever been up there before?
Yeah.
To that particular place?
Uh-huh.
And never saw a rattlesnake?
The rattlesnakes are not indigenous to Western Washington. I mean, I suppose someone could bring one over or something, but if I saw a rattlesnake at Rattlesnake Ledge, I would freak the heck out for multiple reasons. Yeah, I don't like snakes.
My grandson loves them.
They're not supposed to be there.
Weirdo.
So anyway, if you know why it's called Rattlesnake Lake or Ledge,
reach out.
Let me know. But yeah, we did that a week or so ago. It was a nice sunny January day, which was nice. But there was some snow that I wasn't really expecting there to be. I should have prepped a little better. Yeah. So a little bit icy in spots, but no big deal there. So yeah, did that. We do when we go hiking in that area, we have a frequent stop afterwards. It's called Scott's Dairy Freeze.
Hey, wait a minute. This is
I know
Pastors and Pizza.
it's not a pizza place.
Okay.
So I'll keep it brief, but it's a pretty nice little drive-in type place. Burgers, ice cream, good little spot. And it seems like every time I go there, it's sunny and feels good to just sit outside in the sun. Maybe it's because we're going hiking and we tend to hike when the weather's better.
And you are definitely a sunshine fan.
I do like sun, particularly when it's warm and sunny. I mean, I'll take, cooler and sunny over cooler and not sunny, but I prefer warmer and sunny.
I mean, and really, depending on if you're hiking or whatever, it makes sense that you would want something at least not miserable.
You don't want it too warm though, because
Right.
then
That's
you're exerting yourself, and then you get too hot. And I'm basically Goldilocks here. I mean, like most Seattle people, they
You're
it's
a
got to
transplant.
be it's
You're
got to
not
be
even-
71 degrees with a gentle breeze from the west. Otherwise, it's just a disaster out there.
Hey, John, where were you born?
I was born in SoCal, Glendora, California. I moved when I was like 6, though. So, I mean, I've been here a really long time.
Because you're older than 6.
I'm way older than 6. So,
Indeed.
yeah. So that's something I did recently. I consume way too much media as far as movies and TV and things like that. I hesitate to say this because I maybe will come across as spoiled. Because I probably am spoiled. But I recently got as a gift for Christmas from my family a new OLED TV. Ooh. And I did not expect to get said TV. This is like a dream gift item that I bother my wife about all the time. We'd go to Costco. I would stop at Costco.
Hold on, everybody. Did you just go, I didn't expect to get this. I bother my wife with it all of the time.
I mean, I didn't think it would actually happen though. But we'd go to Costco, and I would just, they put the TVs right there at the entrance, and I would just stop and stare at the OLEDs.
What is OLED?
And she
For the
I don't,
uninformed.
I honestly don't know what the O stands for, but the LED part, the LED, is light emitting diode. But it's just basically the technology used for the screen. And the great thing about OLED TVs is that they have true black. Like the pixels, they actually do a black, where regular LED TVs, they just turn that pixel off. And so it's not really an actual black. And so you get much more contrast and more depth. Wow. And so I've been kind of geeking out on my new TV. I've implemented 4K movie Monday, 4K movie Tuesday, 4K movie Wednesday. So you may be catching a theme here. But
is there a day we don't have 4K movies?
I mean, unfortunately, yes. Not necessarily intentionally. Like I'm purposely trying to not have movies. It just ends up not happening. Okay. But yeah, I'll tell my kids or my wife or all of them, say, hey, it's time for OLED Thursday 4K movie night. And they're like, what? And so, But I've been doing that a lot recently.
Well, congrats. Merry Christmas.
Yeah, so it's a new TV, and I love it. And I'm excited about watching things on it. So
I did watch a football game on it, and it was very, very nice.
And that wasn't even in 4K.
Holy smokes.
Yeah, you need to come over and watch it in 4K, because that's amazing. So
what are you doing for the Super Bowl?
Come on over and watch a movie with me. It's 4K movie night, whatever night it is.
Whatever night. All right. Yeah. Thanks. Sorry, that was an invitation for me.
Yeah, no worries. No, really, I was telling anybody, come on over. Wow. Yeah, so we don't have a lot of time on this segment, but speaking of movies, one thing I am excited about coming up is I have rejoined the Movie Pass phenomenon.
John.
Yeah,
it was
so
a real
I know
bummer for you in the past.
It was I don't know if you guys know about Movie Pass, but Movie Pass this is a few years back now. I had heard about them a long time ago and thought, that's not really, at the time it wasn't super cost efficient. That's not really a value. But then they came out at Costco where you could get like a year membership. It was like $70 or something like that for a full year. And their whole thing was you could see one movie every single day at basically any theater you wanted.
Oh gosh.
And somehow they couldn't sustain that and went out of business.
You're a business major, right?
Yeah, I mean, I do handle operations and finances here at the church, and so I think I can figure out how that happened. But it was really cool while it lasted, and then it went kaput. The last few months were just, I mean, it was a total disaster, mess. Everything wasn't working right, and it was bad. But they're back. They got new financing, a new model. It's not nearly as good of a system for the consumer. Probably more viable on their end.
Maybe they'll throw some treats out to the originals.
Yeah. So they're kind of gradually implementing this. They're doing some beta testing. And so because I was a previous subscriber, I'm able to get in kind of this beta first part thing here. And so I signed back up for that. So we'll see how that goes.
Oh boy.
Get some movies going.
I hope that works out. Man, just quickly, we watched a movie called Worth, and it's based on the true story of the, what do they call him? Special master or something like that took over for the government, the 9/11 victim fund, and how to pay out for the victims and their families and all that kind of stuff. And it really, the very first part of the whole movie with Michael Keaton was, what is a life worth? And it just got me thinking a ton about what Jesus did for us and how he paid for us. And then the movie just unpacks how this lawyer, trying to help out his country with all this 9/11 and all the tragedy and all that, how he could help take care of these people, that they wouldn't have to go through litigation. They would just get these payouts from the government. Really, the government is motivated by not having a financial fall apart, which ended up happening anyways. But all that to be said, it was pretty intriguing. It was provocative. It actually calls us to question why and what we do with people who are hurting, why and what we do with people who are maybe not equal when it comes to financial means. And so it made me think a lot about James and how he says, don't show favoritism. Somebody with gold ring comes in, you say, here's a special seat. Somebody comes in shabby, looking homeless, you say, hey, there's a spot at my feet. And it really calls that out. And pretty good movie.
Yeah, I've seen that one too. It's definitely a good movie. It makes you think about how we ascribe worth.
Absolutely.
Someone just because they make less money or have less upward mobility or whatever,
Right.
are they inherently less valuable? And just kind of makes you question all of that and think through how you ascribe worth. So I thought that was good. You also definitely see in that movie some people maybe not agreeing with how that worth is ascribed.
Oh gosh.
And some anger, which we're actually going to talk about in our next section here. So stick with us here after the break, and we're going to talk about a topic that people don't necessarily want to talk about so much.
Hope it doesn't make you mad.
Yeah, if so, we've got some tips at the end. So,
Yes.
so listen and see how you can maybe get a hold of that anger. All right, we'll see you in a minute.
Bye-bye.
Thanks a lot. All right, welcome back. It's good to be with you guys again. So we're gonna kind of transition now, and we're gonna talk about maybe a little bit of a sore subject for a lot of folks.
Just to frustrate people right off the bat.
I mean,
when you say transition, that's entirely different for some people in our culture.
Yeah,
which is a different topic for a different time.
Yes, we're not talking about transitioning. We're transitioning from the previous topics that we've already talked about.
The grub, what's been going on? Yeah. Got it.
We're gonna talk about anger. And I was actually thinking we decided to talk about this, and I was thinking, it's probably decent timing. We just came off of Martin Luther King Jr. holiday this past week.
Yes, sir.
And obviously he had a kind of a different approach to some significant issues in his time.
For sure.
Right. I mean, a lot of people with racism and just civil rights and liberties, and his approach was peace and love, and even talked about how you can't drive out darkness with hate.
That's right.
You gotta use love for
That's
that.
right.
And
Love and light. Absolutely.
Yeah. But we here, several decades later, aren't really seeing things improved from an anger standpoint. I mean, obviously from a race standpoint, I think there's obviously been some improvements. It's not all the way there yet.
We are far from all the way there, yeah.
But from how we deal with issues and how we respond to these things, we haven't necessarily seen a lot of improvement, right? We
Absolutely.
see a lot of anger out there.
I would say just recently, as we're recording this, last Saturday night, there is yet again another mass shooting in California, and then one the next day. And I mean, there's gun violence for sure. But, John, as we were talking about this, what has really got people so on edge? That's a very multifaceted answer to that question. But there's been a lot of people angry, divided, frustrated, really over the past few years. You've got the political climate, and then you've got all of the different viewpoints on COVID and vaccination and masks and all of those things. And then the isolation and people not dealing with people like face to face. You got social media, and you've got keyboard warriors and all these things. And so, yeah, it doesn't look like it's getting better. But let me ask you, do you think it's just not getting better, or we're just seeing more of it because of the technology?
Well, yeah, and so I mean, there's a lot there that you just talked about that we could certainly get into, and yeah, I mean, anger obviously is not a new thing, right? It goes,
not at all.
We see it all the way back with Cain and Abel, right?
Yes, sir.
And so it's not new. It's not going anywhere. It's not going to end until Jesus returns and sets things right.
Amen.
So, but yeah, I think it does seem to be more prevalent.
Mm-hmm.
And is it? Or are we just more aware of all of
right.
these circumstances because of just the ease with getting information this day and age, right?
Yes.
We've got social media, we've got 24/7 news cycles, we've got all these different things, and so it's just in front of you all of the time.
Always.
But I mean, I think just from experience, going to restaurants or stores or airplanes or whatever. I mean, I don't keep track specifically, but I mean, it feels like, and maybe it's just anecdotal, right? But it feels like you see and experience more of these kinds of outbursts.
Oh, yeah.
Now than maybe, 10 years ago, 15 years ago.
Yeah, for sure.
And so I think just experience, I think, tells us that it's probably more prevalent. But there definitely is the factor of you've got social media, you've got all these things where everyone's posting the latest road rage or the latest Karen episode in a store or
that's
whatever.
Not Karen Blankenship. That's just the
no.
name.
Our friend Karen wouldn't do that.
Right.
But it's unfortunately for her been how these people have been categorized. These women anyway as Karens, and they're.
But you can relate because like the Dear John letter. I mean, that had to be rough. Oh wait, did that ever happen to you? Did you ever get a Dear John letter?
No, I never got a letter per se, but
Ooh.
I mean, there's maybe some times where
it's not you, it's me, kind of a thing.
Yeah,
okay.
yeah.
Sorry.
I mean, that's another story.
I don't want to stir up any anger.
Yeah, I'm trying to push that anger down and not let it out.
Let me tell you a little something about that. It's super unhealthy to push it down. It's more unhealthy to give it full vent, but to deal with it. Because if you press it down, John, it's a lot like a Jack in the Box. It is going to come out eventually, especially if you're and how Buddy got scared every single time on Elf.
Yeah,
we shouldn't be that surprised when it pops out because we put the lid on it and then we go for it and it pops out. And so dealing with our anger in a godly way and a don't let it get a foothold like it says in Ephesians 4, that's something. I mean, and all the joking aside, I think a lot of times anger, we try to be like the Hulk, so to speak. I'm always angry, but I just try to keep it underneath the surface. It's coming out.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, that was his secret, right? He says, "My secret is that I'm always angry."
It's just like a simmer.
I'm not really stuffing any anger about Dear John letters.
Sorry,
or
guys.
Breakups.
That sounded like we got real serious. Well,
yeah.
we did get serious, but not about his Dear John stuff.
No, but there is times that I think all of us will stuff anger, and I think
absolutely
there's probably times where that's appropriate. Like there's just times where maybe don't let that out right now,
right?
But you need to deal with it.
That's right.
At some point. But let's backtrack though a little bit. You kind of talked about quite a few of maybe the potential issues that are causing us to be angry. So why are we so angry?
Wow.
And we, not you and me necessarily, but as a society, as people, why are we so angry?
Boy, John, I have spent 52 years on this planet, 52 and a half, as a matter of fact. And so I can tell you what I've experienced personally, what I've witnessed personally, been alongside of a lot of people with anger management issues and all that. And I would say the ultimate thing that stands out is control. We want control. We think we need control. And we actually feel like we need control. And so there's fear, and there's anger, there's pride, and there's anger. And I think that those are the three main things, right? That we want control. We're afraid that something bad is going to happen, or something worse is going to happen, or I won't be able to control something. And then that's pride as well. Like, I wouldn't do it that way. Don't talk to me like that. You're not in charge of me. You don't get to do that. We can't really fight God. And so we fight with others.
I mean, we try, but yeah. So I was actually reading an article about anger culture, and this psychologist, Dr. Ryan Martin, was an article in the Green Bay Press Gazette of all places.
Wow.
He says part of what happens when you're angry is you feel disempowered. So we have to try to find ways of taking some of that power back.
Yep.
Right. And you kind of talked about that with the lack of control. Things feel out of control. And so, yeah, so we feel disempowered. Someone's trying to take from us, trying to hurt us, they're trying to harm us. They're taking our power or our control.
Yeah.
And so we respond. And part of that's a natural response, right? That God gave us the fight or flight response, right? And so part of that is intended for our safety, to be able to defend ourselves, right? But obviously, most anger that we experience in myself and in society is not that kind of a thing, right? No. It's kind of a misapplication of that fight or flight response.
And my friend Leslie says your why isn't usually the real reason why on a lot of things.
Yeah.
Check this out. James 4. What causes quarrels and what causes fights among you? I'd assume we understand that fights and quarrels are going to come from anger, right? Definitely feeling separated, frustrated. And he says this, is it not this, that your passions are at war within you? You desire, you don't have, so you murder. You covet and cannot obtain, so you fight and quarrel. You do not have because you do not ask. You do ask, but you don't receive because you ask wrongly to spend it on your passions. It is my rights, my life. You can't infringe on me. Knock it off. I may not, again, fight everybody, but this causes fights. Sound like Mike Tyson. Speaking of anger. But anyways, here's the thing from me with James. It's really offensive because he's right.
Well, yeah. So I mean, if you were to summarize what he says there, it's like what causes fights and quarrels? You're not getting what you want.
Exactly.
And so then we get upset and we fight back. We lash out. We're angry, right? And
we covet, or again, just the reaction, like this guy from the Green Bay Gazette?
The Green Bay Press Gazette.
Wow, that's impressive. That so many back in the day things, Press, Gazette, but
let's get them all in there. News, Chronicle, Post.
I don't know, you can't have too many newspapers probably there, so you can name it whatever you want. But yeah, he's getting after this idea of, again, of control and power, authority, fear that you're losing those things. And in some ways we are. I think as Christians, we're supposed to recognize, first and foremost, that we're not the Lord. And then secondly, other people are humans, and they're going to make their mistakes, and they're going to do their things, and they're going to cause problems, and all that opportunity is for us to trust God, to help others. But we're really scared, we're really tired, we're really no margin, we're frustrated. It's always somebody's watching me, somebody's messing with me. I had this one occasion where we were in between a junior high camp and a senior high camp, like literally just a couple of days between that. And we're all really tired, already fried, and we've got a week coming up that we're going to be with the senior high group. And my bus driver and boat driver and all that, he was pretty much, on his last nerve. And he came driving through the parking lot. I was there with a friend of mine, and the friend of mine is kind of a jokester. And the guy that is our driver and our friend says, "Hey, what time is it?" And he says, "Oh, it's 10-2. 10-2, your own business." And my other friend lost his marbles.
Oh, wow.
Just so angry. And I laughed at because of the joke. It's kind of a dad joke.
You love your dad jokes.
Oh, my goodness, bro. For a long time now. But it wasn't funny to my other friend. And he was, trying to change his life. And he's trying to change the way he was eating and all the different things that were going into his body. He was trying to change. So he was pretty cranky and maybe even hangry, right? And, we weren't sensitive to all that. And he let us have it. And he came back and he said, "Man, I'm sorry. I love you guys. I don't want this to go into this trip." So we got an enemy who hates us. We got our own flesh that pimps us out and does all kinds of different things. The world system is not geared towards cohesiveness. Mm-hmm. It's get what you can when you can.
Absolutely.
And so you've got, as Christians, and so I'll ask you this question: how have you dealt with, as a Christian, your anger? Because the Bible doesn't say don't be angry. As a matter of fact, there's tons about how God is angry. Mm-hmm. And like Moses even said in Deuteronomy, look, God wanted to wipe you guys out. He was so mad at you. But I prayed for you. I don't know if Moses was trying to say, check me out or what, but he was like, God was mad, and mad is not a sin. So Ephesians says, be angry and sin not. Mm-hmm. How have you been able to do that?
Well, so let's put a pin in that real quick. And so that story that you gave is a great example, I think, because almost always anger is just a response to something else that's going on.
It's not the why.
It's not usually because that joke was super offensive or whatever. There's something else going on in your heart, in your life,
yes,
that causes you to lash out and to respond, right?
Unreported stains.
And, sometimes your anger is a direct result of something that's going on. Like even like road rage. Sometimes you've had a bad day and you take someone pulling over in front of you offensively, like they are intentionally trying to thwart you. But really, it's because your boss yelled at you, or because you're having marital problems, or because these other things are going on. Now, sometimes that someone's just a jerk on the road and you respond angrily. And so it's a little bit of both. But a lot of times our angry responses are indicators that something else is going on in our lives.
Amen.
Right?
Amen.
And I see this actually in my dogs, weirdly enough. So I've got one dog in particular that sometimes she takes a little longer to do her business than I like, so I get frustrated with her.
So she's like a business dog?
Yes, she sells things. It's amazing. Her business, Aaron.
Oh, gosh.
Yeah.
I'm a little dense.
I will get frustrated, and so this is kind of just a chain of reactions, right? So I'll get frustrated with her, and so I'll yell at her, and then she takes it out on the other dog. Because the other dog's just mostly kind of a doofus and, do and just wants to play and be kind of the little sister and, pick at and whatever. And she's oblivious to anything that's going on. But the first dog, when I yell at her, will then take it out on the other dog by now reacting and like snarling or barking at the innocent dog that did nothing.
Absolutely.
Right. And it got me thinking of how we're like that.
We are.
Right. We anger compounds anger.
Yep.
Right. And so we respond angrily. That doesn't usually lead to the other person being all sweet and peaceful, and what they usually then respond angrily. Right.
Absolutely.
I think, we're both married. We both have kids, and so I think we've probably seen this play out from both sides. Like when we respond angrily, or when someone is angry with us.
Domino or snowball effect.
Things escalate.
Yes.
Right. And suddenly you're having this argument, this fight, this whatever, and it snowballs, like you said, and things get out of control, and then hopefully you come back and you apologize and you ask for forgiveness and all that. So back to your question about responding. Right. So in the heat of the moment, if someone approaches me angrily, my natural tendency is to kind of just elevate the tension. The blood pressure goes up and
get a little escalation.
I want to defend myself. I want to retaliate. I want to prove my innocence. Like all of these things are kind of my natural first response. I'm not usually interested in finding out why are they so angry. Like there must be something else going on in your
You're
heart.
Feeling some big emotions. What's going on?
Yeah, did somebody hurt you? And and responding that way probably is not going to help the situation either. And so that may be something you have to talk about later when things have cooled down.
Right.
But the natural response is things escalate, right? And
react.
And so that's, you have to, when you're on the receiving end of anger, you have to be able to take a breath and be able to try to de-escalate the issue, right? That's what police officers are taught. They're supposed to de-escalate situations, right? Maybe if you're a teacher, hopefully you're able to de-escalate issues with students and whatever's going on. As a parent, you kind of have to do that with siblings are fighting or whatever. And so how can you de-escalate, maybe be a voice of reason, a calming influence, and kind of bring the temperature down a little bit. But when you're the one being angry, hopefully you're receptive to some of those tactics from the other person, right? And be able to do that.
I mean, it's that opportunity, right? We talked on this last Sunday, about Jesus being the light and that he calls us to be the light of the world. He's leaving. You guys are going to be my reps right here, my little image bearers showing the kingdom and all that. It's a light moment, not light-hearted moment, but a moment for the light to come in, right? When somebody says, hey, I can see that you're really upset. Is there anything I can do to help? What's going on? I just told you, right? And so we're like, okay, so let me tell this back to you or whatever. But Solomon in Proverbs 15, says, a soft answer turns away wrath, but a harsh word stirs up anger. And it's, for me, those are two different words, right? There's wrath and anger. I believe wrath is like anger being acted out. Like you're finally like, I'm done. And so he's saying, look, a soft answer is going to turn away wrath, but a harsh word stirs up anger. So somebody comes at you angry and even maybe a little bit wrathful, it's time to like not meet them there. And you're going to need the Holy Spirit for that. You're going to need to count to 1,000, breathe, pray, all those things. And it's really, really a good time to ask yourself, what am I mad about?
Right.
Am I reacting? And so, I mean, I've seen preschool teachers, kindergarten teachers, even like you said, all the way up into high school and coaching and all that, but especially the younger kids, like, hey, I can see you're really feeling a lot right now. What's going on? Like, I just told you I don't want to talk about it, or I don't know. Like, okay, well, how about a little bit of a timeout? So for me, in my marriage, I'm somebody that has to talk about it. Like, let's get this out. We might puke it up on the table a little bit, and then we work through it. Kathy is more of a ruminator. She's going to chew on it a little bit. She doesn't really think as quickly, and her mouth doesn't get her in as much trouble as me because she slows down on that.
Yeah.
And so we've had to learn, like, look, can we talk about this? I'm not ready to talk about it. Okay. Will we be able to talk about it? Yeah. Give me 10 minutes. Give me 15 minutes.
Yeah.
Give me a couple of hours, right? And so in marriage, that's that way. When you're driving, you don't get to have a conversation with the person that cut you off or flipped you off or whatever might be going on. And so for us as Christ ones, we've got to remember that we're supposed to be not only setting an example, but pointing people to Jesus.
Right.
Which leads me to something that Christians will use as a reason for being angry. Jesus got mad.
Right. Yeah. So I mean that's definitely a conversation we should have, and we can talk about these things in kind of any order here, because I do want to maybe give some suggestions or some tips for how we can respond when things maybe get a little heated, or how we can reflect ourselves on our own lives and how we respond to things.
Amen.
But one of the things, just coming off of what you were just talking about, so I read a book a few years ago called Unoffendable by Brant Hansen, and it actually has just gotten re-released. It's been updated and re-released. He was just on Good Morning America a couple weeks ago.
Nice.
But this book, Unoffendable, is, in a nutshell, it's about kind of laying aside your right to offense. And
Wow.
in our country, in Western culture in particular, it's kind of a lot about rights. I have the right to do this or the freedom to do that. And we're very big in our country about our rights.
Yes, we are.
We've seen over these last couple of years in particular with COVID and with masks and with vaccines and all of these things, guns, all of these
Gatherings,
things about rights and what we are or are not free to do. And we hold on to those things, right? And that carries over into all sorts of areas of our lives, right? We have these rights. As a husband, I've got rights for this, and as a parent, and as a employee, and as all these things that we want to defend our right to do things. And so this book, Unoffendable, is, like I said, it's basically about laying down your rights. Now, you may have heard that somewhere before, seen that modeled before.
Jesus?
Jesus,
Oh,
yeah.
okay. Yeah.
And so that's the basis of this book, right? It's like, hey, if Jesus was able to lay down his rights, go all the way to death
Yes.
that he didn't deserve,
Wow.
for other people who did deserve it,
Absolutely.
right?
That would be me, by the way.
Yeah, and that's our example, right? So we should be able to lay down our right to, getting home faster by 30 seconds instead of being cut off, or our right to, whatever the case is. And so that's kind of the point of that. And so I would highly recommend the book for any of you guys that, I mean, really anybody that wants to just be more like Jesus, wants to maybe figure out how do I control my temper, my anger. I would encourage that.
If I could
that
get
book.
over being offended by the title, I think I would probably be able to do
Yeah,
it.
and then so then that brings me up though back to your statement about righteous anger. Is there such a thing as righteous anger?
Well, yeah, according to God. Here's the problem with our anger. We're not perfect. Our anger is always at some level going to be tainted with sin, by sin, somebody else's or mine. God's is not. It's perfect and it's holy. Again, there's just a ton of verses. You guys can look them up. Deuteronomy 9, Psalm 2:12, kiss the Son lest he be angry. And then there's a bunch more with that. Psalm 37:8. But the big one that Christians bring up, and I see it a ton on Twitter, is that Jesus was angry. And it was. I mean, he was indignant on some things. He didn't always react, but there's 2 times. One in John 2:11 through 18, and one in Matthew 21. You can go 12 through 23 on that, but it's 12 through 16 for sure. But he came into the temple 2 different times, like at the beginning of his 3-year ministry, basically, and then Passion Week. So the end of that. I mean, he's still ministering today, but he got mad and he upended tables. In the first one in the book of John, he actually made a cat of 9 tails whip. And I don't know if he was fashioning that early and they're like, hey, what are you doing with that, Jesus? Right? And then he just came in. But there was people that were price gouging other Jews who were coming to worship. And they couldn't take Roman money in the temple for a temple fee, right? To be able to use the temple and to be in the temple and to keep the temple going. So they had to do money changing. They also sold birds because you can't really bring a bird a long trip when you would come for all these festivals and these times where you make sacrifices. And so the big thing too is that Jesus noticed that they were doing this market in the temple in an area that was supposed to be for the Gentiles to come and worship Yahweh. By the way, the Jews are like, they don't deserve to be here. Like the Jews, by that I mean the leaders, they're like, no, we're fine, we'll do this. And people, he's like, you're making my house a den of thieves. And so there John is this righteousness, and they knew it. Like as soon as this happened, his disciples remember, zeal for my house will consume me. And what are we mad about? Are we mad because Jesus is being offended? Are we mad because we're being offended? Are we mad because we don't like the way the government is talking? Are we mad about the things that make God mad? And we're in this year-long focus on Jesus said. And friends, I would say, go and look up the stories where Jesus got angry. Go and look up what he was mad about. Go and look up in the Old Testament what God was mad about. We should be mad about the things that make God mad, and we should be mad like him. And we're going to need help with that. So to say should and all that, what are some recommendations that you would have on helping our listeners that you have seen, that you have worked through, to be righteously indignant? Because there are things that are always right for all people all the time. And God has said so. So what do you have? Do you have a recommendation or two?
Well, yeah, I don't know if I've got a recommendation necessarily, but I think we've got to be very careful on how we label our anger, our indignation, as you talked about. Yes, there are things that we should be upset about. Injustice should upset us.
Absolutely.
Lying, sin, all of that stuff should upset us. And so it's not that we can't ever be angry about things or upset about things, but how we respond to those things is, I think, the difference, right? We can't and we shouldn't respond angrily. And so it's okay to be angered by sin. It's okay to be, but with that, are you angered by your own sin? I guess is a good first question.
Wow.
Or are you just angered by other people's sin? And so
that's good.
If you're just angered by other people's sin, then are you really angry about sin?
Yep.
And so we've got to ask ourselves some of those questions. And like you started off the whole part here about righteous anger is we're not Jesus. We are not perfect. And so when we claim, well, Jesus got angry, yeah, he sure did, but he's perfect. We can trust Jesus.
Yes, sir.
Explicitly.
Amen.
Right? Whereas we are fallen, sinful people, and so we cannot be trusted explicitly. And so we've got to be very careful when we're ascribing things like that, because that's what happened with Jesus, because we're not him.
So, right, bro, you bring that up. Ephesians 4:26 and 27, and I kind of mentioned it, but be angry and do not sin. Do not let the sun go down on your anger. So now don't just stoke your anger and soothe it and say, I'm going to keep you here with this grudge. And then it says, and give no opportunity to the devil. The King James says, give no peace to the devil. And this word opportunity is also foothold in the NIV. And it's this word topos, which means ground. Right. Don't give ground to the devil.
Right.
If you're going to be mad for the things that make God mad and give your anger to God.
Yeah. And we've talked about a lot of the reasons why that makes sense earlier, right? Anger compounds, right? If we respond angrily to these things, then that escalates things, right?
Doesn't tend to
so it's
soften
not,
it.
Yeah, it's not going to improve anything.
No.
By responding in that way. Can you be upset about it? Can you want to do stuff to change it? Absolutely, we should. But unfortunately, I think most of the time when we talk about righteous anger and will Jesus overturn tables, that's usually an excuse to justify our own behavior. It's
Our
usually
own wrath or whatever.
Yeah, it's usually an excuse to be a jerk.
Yep.
Right, and so. Again, we've got to be very careful with how we're phrasing those things, how we're using those things as justification for our inappropriate use of anger.
That's right.
And so there's one quote from Unoffendable. He says, "My anger isn't a sign of trust. It's the very opposite. I'm worried someone's going to get away with something, like God's not noticing, and it's all up to me."
Hey. Oh my goodness.
Right. And so again, I think a lot of times we use these things as excuses. Well, I've got to defend my faith and I've got to stand up for Jesus. And it's like Jesus called us to follow him, to disciple others, to like bring other people to him. There's not really times where he's like, hey, make sure you yell at everybody and tell them how bad they're doing.
No, not very. I don't recall any time.
So yeah, so like I said, we've got to be very, 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 very careful with that and not just use it as an excuse to be a jerk.
Ooh, that's good, bro.
Yeah.
Man, I got to get that book. Hey, heads up, Crosswater, by the way. That might be something you see on the Jesus Said series coming to you.
Absolutely. And I mean, maybe it's a small group or a study or a class or something too, because I mean, it's a really good book and it really does change your mindset. And obviously, like I said, it's based off of scripture. I mean, you can think about the unforgiving servant, right? Servant owes a bunch of money. King says, "Hey, pay me." He's like, "Hey, have mercy. I'll do it, but I can't right now." The king's like, "You know what? I'm just going to go ahead and just wipe out your debt. You're free. You don't have that debt anymore. You're good to go." And he immediately leaves, finds another servant that owes him money and demands payment. That servant asks the same thing for mercy. And he says, "Nope, you're in jail until you can pay me." And then the king finds out what happened. And he's like, "You wicked servant. Like, I just forgave you and you turned around and didn't do the same."
Wow.
Right. And so obviously the story there is we have been forgiven so much.
So much more.
Who are we to then try and turn around and not forgive other people?
That's so good.
Jesus doesn't, I mean, he's offended by sin, right? He can't be with sin. Mm-mm. But instead of holding that against us, he died for us.
He who knew no sin became our sin.
And yet we can then turn around.
Wow.
And flip that on other people and like, what haven't you been? He has been forgiven much. Should forgive much.
That's
right.
So, gosh, bro, that's
good.
So
there's a lot there. We're getting short on time, so we need to kind of wrap it up. But I was reading this other book. It's called The Heart of Anger by Christopher Ashe and Steve Midgley, I think is his name. But basically, kind of three ways to maybe kind of assess in your own life. Maybe where you're doing or how to maybe get a grasp on anger. And first thing he says is to identify. And he says, angry people often don't believe they are angry. They just believe they are right.
Ooh.
And let me tell you, as someone who likes to be right and sometimes point it out, you can be right in a wrong way.
Yeah, man. Wow, that's exactly right.
And so just because you're right doesn't mean you weren't angry. And so you have to be able to
wrong way.
You have to be able to identify these things. And he gave a list of some ways that sometimes this crops up, because we maybe think anger as one's kind of specific emotion or thing. And he says this may be some of the places where you can tell if maybe you've got some underlying anger going on. Resentment, bitterness, irritation, grumbling, sarcasm, indifference, a critical spirit, competitiveness, abuse, envy, hatred, quarreling, or sulkiness
Oh my goodness.
can all maybe be evidence of anger. Maybe it's underlying anger. Maybe it's not so underlying, but those are maybe ways that it comes out
Yep.
that we don't always think of. So first, identify that there's anger
That's
there,
good.
right?
Identify.
Next, consult. Maybe you need to have some accountability. Maybe you need to talk to somebody that can maybe point out, yeah, bro, yeah, sis, that I've seen that in you sometimes.
People you trust, obviously.
Yeah.
People that can get in and say things to you that are tough.
Right, and that is super hard.
That is, especially
Right.
when you're mad.
Yeah, because if that's an issue and now someone tells you it's an issue, now you're like, the tendency is to defend yourself and
That's right.
to ramp up. And you and I talk quite a bit about accountability and how you want accountability until you need accountability, and then you don't really
Exactly.
want accountability anymore.
Nope.
So, and then the last thing he talks about is to kind of explore your anger. Like, what's going on in your heart? What is your anger about? What desire? We talked before about kind of not getting what you want, right? So what is that desire that is being thwarted?
Oh, that's good.
Is there some fear that you've got inside you that you're reacting to? Right. And so explore that anger and figure out maybe what's going on at a deeper level, because the anger is a symptom. It's not
Always.
not really what's going on. There's something else going on.
Anger is a secondary emotion for
Right.
sure.
And so, yeah, so there's some tips to maybe help you maybe identify if that's an anger, if anger is an issue in your heart.
Gosh, you guys, I'm just writing it down. So identify, consult, and explore. And what was the name of that book
It's called
again?
The Heart of Anger, Christopher Ashe and Steve Midgley.
Gosh, man. So I would say, back to John pointing out what Jesus did by telling that story of the unmerciful servant, just remember how much you've been loved. The end of Ephesians 4 says, be kind and tenderhearted towards one another, forgiving each other, just as in Christ God forgave you. We didn't deserve it. We certainly didn't earn it. And he cannot be imperfect. So his love, instructive, transformative, redemptive, come to him first and then to people. And continually living that kind of lifestyle is really, really difficult. But we're called to daily take up our cross, deny ourselves, and follow him. Anger and what you're mad about will be one of those great ways to know how much you need Jesus and how much other people need to see him in you. John, those books, Unoffendable and The Heart of Anger, gosh, in addition, obviously, you guys, to reading Jesus and his responses, I think that's some of the stuff that we're going to need going forward, because I don't see our culture getting better.
Right. And so we've got to wrap this up. So let's leave with this, that we are in a messed up place. We're in a broken world. Mm-hmm. Right. But let's live as Christ followers as if we know the end of the story, because we do.
Come
right?
on, man. That's
and
good.
we win. Jesus makes it right, sets it straight. And, we want to bring as many people with us. And we do that with grace and with truth, loving people well. And so let's live as if all of that is true.
That's so good. Will you pray real quick?
Yeah. Lord, thank you so much for your grace
Lord.
that we didn't deserve. That's the definition. And
Amen.
so we thank you for that. And I pray that we would live out of that as a response to what you have already done for us.
Yes, Father.
If we are in you. And I pray that you would help us to live that out, that you would help us to see the things that are underlying in our hearts that need to be taken care of, that need to be addressed. I pray that you would give us eyes to see those around us with compassion and with mercy, see them as you see them, Lord, and help us to be people of peace that are de-escalating these issues, that are helping to solve this problem of anger that is just so rampant in our culture and our society, Lord, that we wouldn't add to it. And we need you for that. And so I pray that you would fill us with your Spirit, that you would continue to guide us, strengthen us, give us your peace, Lord. We pray all this in your name. Amen.
Amen. God bless you all.
All right. Thank you guys for joining us again on the Pastors and Pizza podcast. We will see you next time.
Bye-bye. This has been Pastors and Pizza, a production of Crosswater Community Church in Sultan, Washington.
Check us out online at crosswaterchurch.org.
We meet every Sunday morning at 9 and 10:45 on the corner of 3rd and Birch in Sultan.
Thanks for listening. Be sure to leave us that 5-star review, and we hope to see you soon.
Bye.
Adios.